Welcome to Poland Daily. My name is Aleksander Wierzejski. Polish government will spend about 3 billion Polish zlotys from the state budget on coal subsidies for local governments, said Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. To the end of this winter, the government intends to import up to 17 million tons of hard coal.
Speaking at the conference in the city of Otwock near Warsaw, Mateusz Morawiecki assessed that Polish consumers lack about 3 million tons of coal before the winter season begins. Considering the fact that on average we subsidize each ton by 1,000 Polish zlotys, the total cost of the budget will be at the level of 3 billion Polish zlotys, the Prime Minister said. According to Morawiecki, the money will come from this year's budget. We'll probably manage to fit it in the budget without the need to amend it, Morawiecki said. The Prime Minister also vowed to keep the price of coal at stable level of 1,500 Polish zlotys per ton for local governments. The price of imported coal is high, but we are launching intervention measures to lower it, he said. Whether the importer brings coal at cost of 2,400 Polish zlotys, 2,500 or even 2,700 Polish zlotys per ton, we reduce the price each time to 1,500 gross. Local governments will be able to sell the coal to residents at price not higher than 2,000 Polish zlotys per ton, according to Morawiecki. Additionally, to limit the impact of surging electricity prices on the so-called sensitive institutions, such as kindergartens, schools, care centers or hospitals, these institutions will enjoy a reduced tariff, regardless of how much electricity they use, the Prime Minister said. However, this measure hinges on a decision by the European Commission, which currently allows for applying reduced tariffs only to 80% of use. I can say today that in all probability and based on the information that we have, we will not be applying this limit, Morawiecki said. The European Commission has imposed this 80% limit, but we will be lifting it. Our requirement to present a savings plan will replace it. The prices of coal, natural gas and oil shoot up after Russia invaded Ukraine. Poland has banned imports of Russian coal, which has meant finding alternative suppliers and streamlining the distribution of the commodity.
The United States reaffirmed its commitment to defend every inch of NATO territory ahead of talks among defense ministers from the alliance that included closed-door discussions by its nuclear planning group. Polish Minister of Defense Mariusz Błaszczak confirmed that later this month NATO will conduct the exercise of nuclear deterrence. However, this is not related to the current situation.
We know that Putin is using threats related to the alleged use of nuclear weapons. So the response of the North Atlantic Alliance is to exercise using precisely this asset, one of many, but many important in this context, the asset of having nuclear weapons, said Mariusz Błaszczak. He noted that Poland will also take part in the exercise using conventional weapons. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin confirmed America's commitment to NATO collective defense following repeated nuclear threats by Russian President Vladimir Putin amid battlefield setbacks in his nearly 8-month-long invasion of Ukraine. Nearly 50 countries gathered at NATO headquarters on Wednesday and Thursday and committed to arming Ukraine through the winter and beyond, including with new air defenses.
I also agree with you on the fact that we're going to stay with our efforts to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And you've heard us say that over and over again. The other thing that you've heard us say over and over again is that the United States is absolutely committed to its Article 5 commitments, and we are committed to defending every inch of NATO's territory if and when it comes to that.
Also welcome the very strong message from the international community yesterday. The vote in the UN was a clear condemnation of the illegal annexation of Ukrainian territories and a clear call on Russia, President Putin, to reverse these decisions and to respect the territorial integrity of Ukraine. This just shows that we need to stand up for a rules-based international order, for our core values, and again, the US leadership in NATO, in the international community, is essential for this. So once again, welcome, Lloyd.
Stoltenberg referred to Russia's nuclear threats and said that the circumstances in which NATO may have to use nuclear weapons are extremely remote. He added, however, that there would be severe consequences if Russia used such weapons.
Circumstances in which NATO might have to use nuclear weapons are extremely remote. Russia's nuclear rhetoric is dangerous, reckless, and they know that if they use nuclear weapon against Ukraine, it will have severe consequences, and they also know that a nuclear war cannot be won and should never be fought. We will not go into exactly how we will respond, but of course this will fundamentally change the nature of the conflict. It will mean that a very important line has been crossed. Even any use of a smaller nuclear weapon will be a very serious thing, fundamentally changing the nature of the war in Ukraine, and of course that will have consequences, and Russia knows there will be consequences. NATO allies, we have very good intelligence. We are working hard. We have monitored Russian nuclear forces for decades, and of course we will continue to monitor them very closely, and we will stay vigilant. Also when they now start a new exercise. What I can say is that this exercise, the Russian exercise, is an annual exercise. It's an exercise where they test and exercise their nuclear forces. We will monitor that, as we always do.
According to Ukraine's Armed Forces General Staff, in the past 24 hours, Russian missiles hit more than 40 settlements, while Ukraine's Air Force carried out 32 strikes on 25 Russian targets. The country's emergency services released video showing what is said was the aftermath of Russian missile attack on Mykolaiv.
Ukrainian rescue workers pulled a 12-year-old boy out from the rubble of a shell-struck building in the southern port city of Mykolaiv. Handout footage released on Thursday showed. Teenager was trapped for more than 6 hours after his 5-story residential building fell in the Russian attack. The boy, named only as Artem, was taken to a medical facility, the State Emergency Services of Ukraine says. Doctors believe that Artem will be fine. In the past 24 hours, Russian missiles hit more than 40 settlements, while Ukraine's air forces carried out 32 strikes on 25 Russian targets, said Ukraine's Armed Forces General Staff. Meanwhile, Ukraine's top prosecutor opened criminal proceedings relating to Russian missile strikes that struck Kyiv and cities across the Ukraine this week. Speaking at a joint news conference with International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan in The Hague, Prosecutor General Andriy Kostin described the strikes since Monday as a classic act of terror by Russia. He said the more than 112 Russian missile strikes, Moscow's biggest aerial offensive since the start of this invasion, had killed 17 people and injured 93.
Only at the start of this week, on Monday, Russia launched a massive missile attack, sent more than 112 missiles on Kyiv, Zaporizhia, Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, other cities and towns all over Ukraine, which killed at least 17 people and injured 93. These shelling have no military purpose. The goal of Russia's deliberate attacks is to cause civilian deaths and to destroy civilian infrastructure. By shortage of electricity and heating, provoke humanitarian catastrophe. Coupled with the intimidation tactics against civilians, it's a classical act of terror prohibited under international law.
I ask you to take the floor now.
So all of the hits of every missile, every drone, every damage of civil infrastructure, every person, Ukrainian, who was killed or wounded by this missile attack, all of them are documented and criminal proceedings were registered and opened.
Russia has repeatedly denied deliberately attacking civilians in Ukraine. Moscow also denies violating international law and has dismissed allegations by Kyiv that Russian soldiers have carried out war crimes. In the recently liberated Kharkiv region of eastern Ukraine, prosecutors had found at least 11 burial sites, including one mass grave near the town of Izium, and had exhumed 457 bodies across the sites, Kostin said. An additional 2 mass graves were found in the Liman region, with some 154 people, Ukrainian soldiers and civilians, buried there. The prosecutor's office has 28 investigative teams on the ground in the recently liberated regions where Kostin said retreating Russian troops has left evidence of illegal detention, torture of civilians and illegal deportations.
Company Pern, who operates Polish pipeline network, said there are no signs so far that a leak in one of leg of Druzhba oil pipeline near Toruń was caused by interference from a third party.
The leak, around 70 kilometers west from Poland's Płock refinery, led to a reduction in Russian oil supplies to Germany via Poland, as Europe is on high alert over its energy security in the aftermath of Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, which has cut supplies of gas. According to Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, it is too early to say whether a leak in the Polish section of the Druzhba oil pipeline from Russia was accidental damage or was caused by sabotage. I'm receiving up-to-date information about the cause of the leak as much as it is identified as of today. I cannot jump to conclusions from every malfunction. We do not know exactly who is behind this leakage, whether it is accidental damage or an act of sabotage. In this case, the relevant services are inspecting everything, and of course many steps point straight to Kremlin, but we want to be very responsible and only then confirm our assumptions. A spokeswoman for operator Pern said the company's technical services are working to restore the operation of the pipeline section as soon as possible. After removing crude oil from the area where the leak took place in the western section of the oil pipeline, technical services have located the site of the leak. Preliminary research shows that there are no signs of the participation of third parties at the scene of the incident. At the moment, very intensive work is underway to restore the operational capabilities of this section as soon as possible. Europe has been on high alert over the security of its energy infrastructure since major leaks were found last month in the Nord Stream 1 and 2 gas pipelines running from Russia to Europe under the Baltic Sea. Both the West and Russia have blamed sabotage.
That was the news. Thank you for watching. Poland Daily returns tomorrow, same time.